Okay, good evening. Once again, happy to be here with all of you in this class. Okay, so let's go through the syllabus first for psychology. Three 3.6 to 3.10. Okay, we have five sections. The first one is Introduction to Psychology. So today we will cover Introduction to Psychology, concept of human psyche, stages of consciousness, cognitive process, its meaning, and nature. So it's a very vast subject. Okay, but if you look at the total number of slides, it is around 78, all these chapters to put together. But we'll try to do justice to as much we can. So please stop anytime when you feel that you should ask anything. Okay, so the first one is Introduction to Psychology, concept of human psyche, stages of consciousness, cognitive process, its meaning and nature. So let us understand the origin of psychology. Like a science, psychology discover and explain the underlying laws and principles of human behavior. We all know that. Psychology describes the laws of learning, feeling, and thinking. Like any other science, psychology collects the subject matter or facts of behavior. Psychology is a positive science and not a normative science. Any doubt on that? What does it mean? It's a positive science and not a normative science because very important. What do we mean by positive science? There is no right or wrong answer. Whatever comes to your mind, you tell. Because we are here to learn. Any guesses? Positive science means it doesn't take opinions or subject. It is very objective. Whereas normative science takes subject and opinions. So that is the difference. Like any other science, psychology collects the subject matter. Psychology is a positive science, not a normative science, as it describes the fact of human behavior and its laws as they are not as they ought to be. Many a time people say psychology is an inexact science because people, in spite of everything, people behave differently. So some of the people who were associated as first person was Wundt, was the first psychologist to measure the human behavior accurately. Thereafter, before the Second World War, we had Sigmund Freud, uh, Maslow, Rogers, Watson, Pavlov, and Tishner were among all the important in the development of psychology as a science. It's just for understanding the background. Now listen carefully. The word psychology comes from the Greek word psyche. Psyche means breath, spirit, soul. And the Greek word logia means the study of something. Thus, we can conclude that psychology is the study of soul. Now you will slowly see the transition. There are various definitions for psychology given by
What happened?
लगता सर का फ्रीज हो गया लगता है
हाँ
सर का फ्रीज हो गया
पिक्चर नहीं जा रहे हो ऊपर बेटा समझो ना है तेरा यार
എന്താ എവിടേക്ക് പോണേ ഇതവിടെ മരുന്ന് കഴിച്ചു
അത് after food out एकदम ഞാൻ പോകുന്നു
ഇപ്പൊ रेस्ट बहुत लगेगा टायर्ड बहुत दिखता है पहले के एक्टिंग नहीं है ഭൂമി കണ്ടല്ലേ മെഡിസിൻ ഇപ്പം ഭൂമി കഴിക്കണ്ടേ മെഡിസിൻ
മൂന്ന് കിട്ടുന്നത് ഞാൻ കഴിക്കാൻ പോകുന്നില്ല
ഇത്ര വേഗം
ഇത്ര വേണ്ട
8 o'clock അച്ഛനും വരാം
ഞാൻ മെഡിസിൻ കുറിച്ച് ഓർമ്മ
മെഡിസിൻ കുടിച്ച് ഉറങ്ങി
പിന്നെ നേരെ പോകണമെങ്കിൽ വരണം
ഈ മെഡിസിൻ വരിക ആയുർവേദിക്
ആ
Aristotle was the first student of Plato who set up, Plato was the first person to set up an academy, academy. If you are interested, you can read a book called The Republic, where all the sciences, physics, chemistry, mathematics, everything was studied under philosophy. Later stage when Aristotle came, there was a lot of compartmentalization. Natural science, biological science, physical science, it moved out. Then modern psychology, slowly, the soul became more uh, dormant. Then they started using the word because science came in. So the soul was replaced by mind. The 19th century, mind was replaced with consciousness. And now we know, everybody knows, 20th century, it is still studied as a science of behavior. As William James said, psychology, first lost its soul, then lost its mind, and finally it lost its soul. For a lighter sense. The specialization, behavioral psychology is basically interested in our behavior, results from the stimuli both in the environment and within ourselves. Very simple. Just like what they say, behavioral psychology is a study of behavior. Okay. The biological approach between believes us to be a consequences of our genetics and physiology. So, even today we believe many of those characteristics are very innate. For example, if you see Amitabh Bachchan and Abhishek Bachchan, right from his walking and talking and style and everything, you will find a lot of similarities. It is the only approach in psychology that examines thought, feelings, and behavior from a physical point of view. Evolutionary psychology focuses on how evolution has shaped the mind and behavior. This is very vast, so don't worry, we will finally approach from the exam point of view. Sigmund Freud was the founder of the psychodynamic approach to psychology. The school of thought emphasized that influence of the unconscious, very important for yoga. Unconscious mind on behavior. We all know that. Focus on our information processes of perception, attention, language, memory, and thinking, and how they influence our thought. So, after Sigmund Freud came, a lot of importance was given to unconscious. And why, we will know the reason. Because to what percentage conscious mind, unconscious mind, pre-conscious mind remains, we'll see now. A little bit about Sigmund Freud. Very interesting character. 1856 to 1939. That was the time when, 1939 was the time when this Second World War started. So his period was during the First World War. Jewish background, though avowed atheist, lived in Vienna until Nazi occupation in 1938. Had medical background, wanted to do neurophysiology research, private practice with specialty in neurology. Joseph Brewer and Anna Ho, he was practicing under them. Private practices, nervous and brain disorders. Concept of human psyche. Generally, psyche is referred as the mind in this model. The psyche acts as an extension of the body and reacts to brain functions and outside stimuli. So when we say psyche, it is basically, how you respond to whatever is happening from outside. Freud's single most enduring and important idea was that human psyche personality has more than one aspect. Freud's personality theory, 1923, saw the psyche structured into three parts: the id, the ego, and the superego. We will see the diagrammatic presentation of that, all developing at different stages in our life. These are systems, not parts of the brain, nor is it physical. Freud's theory of personality, now listen carefully. He says id is, is the urge pleasure principle. Okay. When the child is born, a lot of things, you can see the thumb sucking and playing with the genitals and all those things. That comes under the id stage. Ego stage, we actually try to rationalize as we grow up because of education, upbringing. There's a lot of rationalization where we say that whatever now we need to do, we have to do things in a socially acceptable manner. The last thing is superego. The child learns about right, wrong, self-punishment, guilt, feeling good, ethos, morality, all of it at the third stage. Let us understand the id. It's an unconscious part of the mind, meets basic needs and seeks us to bring pleasure. Most important in keeping us alive. The ego, conscious part of the mind, rational self, aware of reality. How do we get what the id wants? So at the ego stage, it actually takes a lot of discrimination. And at the superego, unconscious part of the mind, the acts as a consciences, morality. When we do something, we feel guilty because of the superego. Now, very important to understand. What we see, the conscious mind, is only the tip of the iceberg, where we are aware of certain things. But see the last part, the preconscious mind, outside awareness, but accessible. We know, but many a time we forget at the preconscious level. And unconscious mind, it is not at all acceptable. So if you look at the whole of behavior, many a time, even the interviews are focused on how do we come to know the unconscious, because that is going to be occupying a major part. It is the iceberg. See, at the top level, it's the ego reality. It is very conscious. At the next level, it is the perfection, superego, pleasure principle, libido, sensualized energy, something which we do not get social acceptance. All of them are at the id level. So what happens is that id says, okay. Ego says, okay, guys, I'm in charge. Anything you want to go, you have to pass through me. And the superego is clear that I will do everything what only my consciousness permits. Id is a reservoir of unconscious psychic energy which constantly striving to satisfy. We know that. Okay, it's more pleasure principle where animal instincts are there. People literally do not care what others think. However, as education and other thing come, we always express and give a rationality to it. The id operates or the pleasure principle, if not constrained but reality, it seeks immediate gratification. Ego, the largely conscious executive part of the personality that according to Freud mediates the demand of the id, superego and reality. So at the ego level, there is always a balance that whether we should act according to our instincts or we should catch hold of the morality. So in our normal life, it is the ego which is undergoing a lot of challenges. Many a time, many rape and other things are happening because at the id stage, people just have the animal instinct. They are not seeking pleasure principle, but they are going for an animal instinct and even killing the victim. At the higher level, there is always a guilt that where do we act. So, typically when we study yoga and all, it's a fine balance of ego to superego. where superego will tell us how to live a life of morality, value driven. Conscious level. Now listen carefully. You can read. Conscious level, which relates to awareness of an individual to his environment. It functions when the individual is awake. It is concerned with thoughts, feelings, and sensation, memory, IQ, conscious as sense organs of attention. However, see the number. It is only 1/9 of a total mind. Only 1/9. Through attention, person becomes conscious of perceptual stimuli from the outside world within the organism. Only element in preconscious enters consciousness. It is one-way traffic to unconscious mind. I'll tell you what is preconsciousness. Conscious part of the mind is aware of here and now as it relates to individual and his environment. Now listen carefully. Preconscious is described as that part of the mind in which ideas and reactions are stored and partially forgotten. So many a time, the conscious mind tries to draw and bring it out. Unconscious mind tries to pull it down and suppress it. It also acts as a watchman because it prevents certain painful, unpleasant, unacceptable things. For example, something which we have done earlier, which has given us a very bad experience. The preconscious immediately warns the conscious mind that you need to be careful because earlier you had problems. For example, slip of the tongue, slip of the pen, preconscious region of mind is not present at birth but develops in childhood. It is accessible to both unconscious and conscious mind. Now, many a time, parenting, all the time, we are taught so many things, values and systems that that helps us to be at the precon. But in spite of, one of the biggest truth which our whole Upanishads or Vedas says, knowing and doing gap. People know everything, but there is a gap. They don't do what they know. Even though they know what is right, they don't act. Unconscious part, very important, very, very important. It's the largest part of the mind, 9 by 10. It is hidden part of iceberg that floats underwater. It contains repressed ideas and effects. Elements of unconscious mind are inaccessible to consciousness. They become conscious only through preconscious mind. Repressed ideas may reach to consciousness when sensor is overpowered or relaxed, dream state. Many a time we have seen, no, in the dream, so many unconscious thoughts come. Unconscious pushes so many thoughts into the preconscious level, and then when we get up, we feel that how come we are able to dream something which we cannot even think of? Unknown people, unknown incidences. It is a storehouse for all memories, feelings, and responses experienced by the individual during his entire life. So all the bad effects, the trauma, everything goes and remains in the unconscious mind. Cognition. What is cognition? Any idea? Cognition is nothing but understanding. Okay. Anything we have to understand, it's our cognitive ability. Process of knowing, attending, remembering, reasoning, content of the processes, concepts, memories. Everything, the cognition means whatever we pass through the thinking, knowing, remembering, communicating, we process it so that we know and then we understand it. So that is what cognition is. Cognitive psychology. Okay, we will be studying, in yoga, there is a lot of connection with cognitive psychology and positive psychology. Cognitive psychology is nothing but human intelligence. There is a language, thinking and problem solving, going back to the memory, attention, perception. All of it leads us to understand the reality. Let us look at the pre-20th century history of cognitive psychology. Aristotle. How do we classify objects into groups? Just to understand how do we classify objects into groups. Descartes. What is the relation between mind and the body? There's a lot of work in the yoga comparing Descartes with Patanjali. John Locke. How much do environment and genetics influences affect perception? Ebbinghaus. Can we quantify how information is retained and retrieved from the memory? Brian and Arthur. What happens as a task becomes well learned? They say body brain. No? Body brain says whenever The reflexes work. A good driver over a period of time knows exactly when to apply the brakes, right? Cognition is the process by which the sensory input is transformed, reduced, elaborated, stored, recovered, and used. As we know, cognition is basically for understanding. In science, cognition is the mental processing that includes attention of working, memory, comprehending, and producing language, calculating, reasoning, problem, everything which helps us to make to understand certain things. Cognitive psychologists argue that individuals do not passively respond to stimuli. Whenever something happens, there is a process happening. There's a process happening in the brain. As a result, then we are able to comprehend whatever, but actively process information in the brain before responding to the information. So cognitive ability is the ability when a stimuli is there before we respond, we quickly work, we quickly have the processes. They are interested in what happens in the mind between the stimulus and the response. They look at topics such as perception, memory, thought, language, and attention. Key cognitive theory concepts. Cognitive psychology focuses on how people think, understand, and know. It's an emphasis on learning how people comprehend and represent the world around them. It's nothing difficult. It is only how do we understand, how do we learn. Focus on conscious thinking. It emphasizes on individuals' active construction of understanding. So cognitive processes, what are the cognitive processes? Knowing, thinking, reasoning, remembering, memory, problem solving, judging, decision making, language, understanding and comprehending, using existing knowledge to generate new ideas. All what we do when we read, write, plan for our exams and everything, we are doing all these cognitive processes. It's not something very difficult. Okay, now here it ends. I don't want to go to the next chapter straight away. Okay. For exam, if you're talking about exam, there are very